Welcome back to the Relentless Minds podcast. I am your host, Lori Jimenez. I created this platform with a sole mission, and that is to inspire people of all backgrounds to create the change they wish to see in their lives and in the world by sharing the examples of those who are. As a listener, you will hear the stories of ordinary men and women with extraordinary stories of overcoming adversities in order to experience the life they dream of. All of these individuals share a common interest. They desire a change for the better, and they are in a relentless pursuit to create that for themselves. If you're looking for inspiration to overcome challenges in your own life, to create a life that you desire to have, then you have come to the right place. You see, the truth is, people everywhere are fighting for what they believe in, and together, with relentless action and mental strength, I have no doubt that we can fulfill that dream. Welcome back to Relentless Minds. In today's episode, I sit down with Placide Magambo, a native born to Rwanda, Africa, who was 17 years old at the time that the genocide in Rwanda took place on April 7, 1994. Placide survived the genocide miraculously by staying constantly on the run and sleeping in the forest. However, he was not spared from witnessing the slaughter and death that took place over those 3 months where nearly 1 million Tutsis were murdered by the Hutus. Studies estimate that about 10,000 Tutsis were murdered every day. Placide, like thousands of others that survived the genocide, carried with him the trauma from that experience when trying to piece his life back together. In this interview, Placide shares with us how life was before the genocide and how the hatred from the Hutus were felt every day. He tells us about his experience living through the genocide and the hardships he faced afterwards, trying to continue his life while living through the trauma from the events he experienced. Placide desired to be a journalist because he believed in the impact that journalism could have by informing and educating his community that was so broken after the genocide. But the journey to pursue his passion and create the impact he desired was far from easy. And in this episode, he opens up about all of the things that seemed to work against him and why he was determined to surpass them. Placide, thank you so much for being here today and joining me to tell your story of how you survived the genocide in Rwanda, and also sharing your story of the journey that you had to go through to pursue your dream of being in journalism and being able to be a journalist despite life events that could have derailed you from that dream. So thank you so much for being here today with us.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So to start off, I wanted to get a feel of how life was in Rwanda for you growing up before the genocide.
Yeah, life was good that time. The thing that happened was that our parents didn't tell us who we are, like our ethnic group. But so you would go outside, people would call you, you are a Tutsi, and some others could tell that somebody could tell that they are Hutu, but really the parents didn't tell us that, especially at school. That's where some students, some teachers, they would ask us to stand up in class to tell the ethnic group that we belong to. But something that happened, I remember myself, I went home, I asked my parents who I am, then they said, who asked you that question? So they didn't really want to tell us like our ethnic group that we belong to, but the pressure outside among the students, the teachers, so that's how we learned. Besides that, the life was good. So we could make friends, we could go to school. The life was good that time.
That life was good. And you guys didn't then understand the split between the tribes because your parents weren't trying to inform you of that.
Yeah, actually, the things became more serious when the war started, because as in Rwanda, the history of Rwanda, so there is 3 different ethnic groups. So then before until 1959, so Rwanda had the kings. That's what was the monarchy. Mm-hmm. So then the kings were there. Then when the Belgians and the Germany, they came to colonize. First of all, the Germany came to colonize Rwanda until 1914 during the First World War. Then Rwanda was colonized then by Belgians. So They promoted this division between the people, the community. So then, until 1959, when the Tutsis were expelled, they went outside. They were expelled outside of the country. So some they went to Uganda, Tanzania, Burundi, in the neighboring countries, and in Congo, and some in Kenya. So that's how the family were divided. So the family, those people, those Rwandans who were living outside, were trying to push to come back to the country. So in 1990, that's how they came back by force. So they went to fight the government to overthrow the power that was in place. So that's when the issue of ethnicity became really very serious. So the Hutu were on power, had the power. So that's when they started to divide people, to say that we will revenge, we will kill. If you come back by force, we kill the Tutsis who are in the country. So that's how in schools we were pressured a lot. So some students would attack us, and even the teachers. So
because you guys were unwanted.
Yes. So some students got killed. So they've been attacked. Like my case, me too. I have been attacked when I was at school. I was in northern of the country. That's where I was going to school. So that's how things really started to become more serious, and the division became like very clear, and became like it became very dangerous that time.
Okay.
Until the genocide happened in 1994.
1994. So as a child growing up, and you were 17 years old, is that right, when the genocide occurred?
Yes.
So up until this point, you're obviously experiencing these different dynamics. You were saying that you were beat as a child by their students because there was conflict between the Hutus and the Tutsis already. But when it comes to you and just trying to live as a teenager, as a young adult, what was it that you dreamed of doing? Like, what was it that you had goals to accomplish as a child? Did you always want to be a journalist?
Actually, I think that the idea of becoming a journalist became like I had that idea after genocide. So actually,
how did that come about?
The history of journalism in Rwanda, 1993 or 1992, that's when we had the first TV station in Rwanda. So before, we had no TV in the country. So that's how the idea of becoming journalist became more strong in me than. But on the other side, the journalists at that time, they were. The journalism in general, they were taken as those who promoted genocide. So it was really very tough to be a journalist, so that even my family...
You're saying that journalists were viewed as someone who promoted genocide?
Yes.
How so?
Because of propaganda. During the genocide, the journalists were like commentators, sports commentators.
Wow.
Animating genocide happening that time, so...
Were they encouraging it?
Yeah. There is like one famous radio. So that's the one radio that really promoted genocide, commenting like...
hateful words.
Yeah, hateful words. Yeah, even promoting like the musics that divided people. There is also the newspapers which promoted the genocide. So that's the image that journalists had in general. Even today it happens, so that the journalists, so whenever you see that, like they see the journalists saying like, they keep the eyes on journalists in the country, even in the region. So it was a hard decision to decide to go to do journalism.
I do have a couple questions for you. One was, what impact did journalism have on the genocide during this time and on the feelings of the people, on the Hutus? Yeah, on spreading this idea.
Yes. Journalism, to be honest, it's true that the journalism really had promoted this genocide, and it was very easy to be spread like in community because of journalism.
Interesting. I'm interested because it's a lot of society developed this image of journalism and how it was negative, right? And how it was toxic. And you being Tutsi and having seen the effects of journalism in a negative way, I'm interested in knowing why you thought there was a positive to it and why you actually wanted to pursue it.
Yeah, actually, it's a really interesting question because I always believe that even if it happened that played a big role in propaganda, so it's also on the other side, journalism can be the solution. So it can be the solution to unify people, to bring people together, and it's happening. So I can tell you that the media in general that are playing a role in bringing the people together again. I believe on that side that it can bring people together again. So, but still, of course, there is some people who never believe in journalism anymore. The solution is not to fight back. The solution is to listen to them, to explain to them how the journalism can be a solution in solving the problems, bringing people together, unifying the people instead of dividing them.
Absolutely. And that's what you aim to do, right? And that's what
That's my dream.
Yeah,
that's
my
what
dream.
Your
goal is.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful goal, very admirable. And we're going to go into the journey that you went through in order to achieve that goal, now being here in America. And, something I wanted to see if you wanted to touch on when it comes to the events that led to the genocide. You mentioned there was already a conflict, but when it comes to other things that you may have seen when it felt heavier, were there any signs that there was something that was going to happen before the genocide occurred?
Yeah, that's true. Because like since 1991 and 1992, on radio, even the journalists were announcing that we'll kill them. We have no other solution. Instead of killing them, even the leaders, they were giving speech to leaders who were promoting genocide directly. So it was really clear, but on the other side, it looks like the parents or the adults in that time, how did they decide to stay there, not to leave?
Yeah.
I always ask myself that question, but on the other side, it was like the government had the policy like to keep the people inside the country, so people will not travel. They made it harder to the people to travel, to get out. It was clear that because the leaders, as they were speaking about that, and the media, so it was clear. So then that's the reason why I come back to the role of journalism in genocide. So they were promoting.
Interesting.
Yeah, and even today, it's really very hard to trust the journalists over there. But we lived with that when I was a journalist. We learned, that's one part of doing this profession, to learn how to accept the situation that you are living in. So, which was not easy, of course, but it's part of it.
What do you mean by that? Can you go a little deeper?
Like, it was easier to blame journalists. Yeah, even in our time when I started journalism, it was like 12 years after genocide. But still, the politicians, the people outside, whenever they see something which is not going well, so they blame journalists. So then it's really very hard to accept to be criticized all the time and to say like, it's because of this journalist, it's because of this journalist. Whatever doesn't work, they would say like, it's because it's those journalists. That's the way they are. So that is the reason why it's really very difficult. Some people, like I know some people who gave up journalism. It was not easy, but it's our journey.
Yeah. I appreciate you giving us insight on how that experience was for you when you tried to pursue journalism later on in life, and that this idea and this image of journalists being bad brought a lot of criticism upon you, I'm sure. I would like to backtrack a little bit because we were talking about the events that led up to the genocide, and you were saying that it was all over the media. Journalists were spreading this in the radio, on TV, that, you know, they wanted to kill the Tutsis. So it was very clear. And so when it comes to the actual experience, can you take us back to that day? Do you remember the first day when things happened?
The first day of genocide, like, I remember, actually, the way genocide started, it was like the former president of Rwanda and his colleague, president of Burundi, they were on the same flight. Then there was a plane crash. They shut down with missile. That plane, so the two presidents died in the same flight. So it was Wednesday, April 6, 1994. So in the evening, around 8:30 in the evening. So we didn't know what happened. I remember it was a break, so we were in vacation from school. So which on one side I say it was good for me because I was going to school in a very dangerous area. It would be very hard to survive even if the life was the same. But that night we didn't know what happened. So we learned that the next morning, on the radio they said that the president was killed. So the first thing that we did, so my father and my brother, they went outside to see how things are going. The message on radio, people say, journalists saying people are not allowed to travel. They need to stay at home. So they didn't want like two people to stand together. My father and my brother, they went out, and so I went behind them. So they wanted me to stay in the house, but I followed them. So the first image that I had was the body of people in the street, seeing like the stores being burned. So that's when I said things are becoming more dangerous.
Have you ever seen this before at a lesser level?
Yeah, it was different. It was the time when I was at school. I saw that.
You would still see people
Yeah.
dead.
But this
not-
one was really very, very dangerous. They were killing like lots of people. So it was really very hard to. It's a long story, but yeah, like the journey, like.
Yeah, and you don't have to go through all the details either.
Yeah, so it was really. That's when I saw like things were becoming more serious then.
And that was July 7th.
7th in the morning. It was lots of bullets going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in the night you could tell like that's when the fight really started. So there was fight going on between the rebels, the former rebels, like now the soldiers of the national of the country, but then the soldiers of Habyarimana, those who were doing genocide. So the fight was going on, the bullets killing people. So it was too much.
And you were 17 at this time. Who was in your family at this point?
Actually, we were together with our father and my sisters, 3 sisters, and my brother. So we were together that's my mom was traveling. So when it started, we were not together.
And she was traveling where?
She was in the country, but in north.
Okay.
So for her, she succeeded to leave the country, but. And the rumors that were going on. So some people told her that they saw our bodies on the street. Then she decided to come back in the country. It was really very, very risky. She succeeded to be outside of the country. Then she decided to come back.
Because she heard that something had happened to you guys.
Yeah. I think that the second night, that's when we spread. That's when we spread. We went, my sister and I, we went to hide. There is a friend of my dad, so who was living nearby in the neighborhood. He accepted to hide us, but things were changing like every minute. So at one point, then he said, "I don't want you here to stay here, even if your father is my friend." So then we had to leave. We had to leave that.
Yeah, I do know that there was a lot of neighbors turning their backs and friends turning their backs, people that you thought you could count on because it was everyone for themselves, really.
Yeah, because my family, actually, we met again in Butare in South, and again, we were at our uncle's. So then we've been attacked like every night. Sometimes they would catch us, some other time they would miss. I remember that they were shooting on the door, so trying to get in. So at one point, they took me and my father and my brother, decided to go to kill us. That was the time when it was really very hard. We didn't think that we would survive that time, but fortunately, there were lots of bullets going on. So as soldiers ran, then they left us, but it was really very hard because I went through like that kind of experience even before the genocide when I was at school. So I couldn't stop. Well, then I kept going, but when my brother stopped, they got him, they beat him. He saw lots of blood, but fortunately he survived that day. But I had to run to go to hide. So that's when like things became more serious, to leave the house, to spend the night in the forest hiding. At one point I was looking at myself trying to save my life. So sometimes I stayed alone. From Butare, I went to Gikongoro, Changuguso, trying to hide like in the
And were
forest.
you alone this whole time?
Yeah, this time when I was traveling like the forest, I was alone. My siblings, all of them, they survived, but later my father passed away. Yeah.
During the genocide or after the genocide?
After the genocide.
So everyone survived the genocide?
Yes, everyone survived. Okay. Even if my mom was coming back, yeah, it was risky, but it's a miracle. It was a miracle to see like the whole family like surviving.
Wow.
And without being together.
Without being together, and you just never knew. So I want to know this. So the first is a tough question, okay? And that's when you were with your brother and you had to run, and you both were running, and he stopped, and you had to keep going. How do you feel about that decision that you made?
What I can tell you, like, on one point, I remember where kind of fighting was telling him, if you stop, they are going to kill us. So you don't have to apologize to them. They are going to kill us. But on the other side, you feel it's really very tough. You feel like you betrayed like a brother. Like whenever I saw it after the genocide, we were always discussing about that, telling him we shouldn't stop. Then he said, no, they would kill us. So it was like we were arguing. On the other side, so you feel like you don't want to talk about it at all. Lots of things happened during the genocide. So some people like they feel like I should have done this. I should have stayed, not letting like him. But when I saw him like with bloods, with all this, but it was really very, very hard. You blame yourself. Even still today, we are still living with this confusion. It's really very hard even to tell like those stories, to put them together, to tell like how things went clearly. So it demands preparation, but on the other side, so it's really hard for me to tell this kind of stories, but I try my best. I remember some things, some
Things you don't.
thing that happened on this day, but sometimes there is a triggers like whenever I used to pass like in those areas where I was hiding. Yeah, it was hard to tell. Yeah, so but you remember like things like every day, like even today, I still remember sometimes there is something that can come, kind of trigger, that can trigger the memory, then I can remember something.
Do you feel like a lot of what you went through has been blocked mentally because it's been too traumatizing?
One of the solutions that I was looking for before, like even when I was still in Rwanda, it was like trying to forget. So, but I feel like it's not a solution. It's not a solution. So, trying to ignore the past because it can, it blocks it blocks you like a lot. I was trying to forget this, thinking that it's the best solution.
Why do you feel like it wasn't? What do you feel is the better solution for you?
Right now, I think that it's like to sit down, maybe to write down like whatever. It helps. It helps somehow. But yes, because you try to forget, but it used to happen a lot, like the nightmares. You can't stop the nightmares. You can't stop like things that can trigger your memories. So it's really hard. It's hard, but whenever I sit down and write down, like the first night, what I went through, that's one of the solutions that I think that is working. But trying to forget, the memory still doesn't forget. Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. I think that's an important thing that people can take away that I agree with when it comes to traumatic experiences, coming to face with the events and working on being vulnerable, like sharing, connecting with other people maybe that went through that, instead of running away from it, can be healing, and it can help process the emotions. And so I appreciate you saying that.
It's not easy, but
easy.
You try your best. We have no choice. We have to remember all those things that happened. So, like, we were trying to be like in avoidance to avoid this kind of conversation, but it's not the best solution. Yes, it's not. So, try to remember, try to manage. It's not easy, but forgetting, it can't happen.
It won't happen.
Yeah.
So, moving forward now after the genocide, your whole family survived. What were some of the challenges? How was life then? Were you guys living in fear? How was the relationship with your neighbors that maybe had turned their backs?
Yeah, it was very hard. I remember especially like everything was destroyed. No place to live, where to live, it was, people were living in poverty, so many people, trauma. And it was really very hard to trust, like, neighbors. So all that we had to manage. So it was very hard life after genocide. Even nobody had the trust that it's not going to happen again. Even coming back and see like you are maybe the only survivor among those young boys and girls that you spent together childhood. So it was it was survival, but on the other side, it was like darkness. It was not easy. finding yourself in the environment where your colleagues got killed, others they were outside, they fled the country. So it was really very hard to restart the new life. Myself, I remember I had small jobs where I was making few money, saving to go back to school. So when I came back, when I went to school, even education system had changed. So this was when I went back to school. It was in 1995, end of 1995. So, but I had to adapt to keep my dream alive, to go back to school, to think what I can do, to change my life. So it was very hard to manage, very hard to understand.
So tell us about you wanting to change your life. You wanted to go back to school to change your life. In what ways was it that you were trying to change your life?
In the context that the way we're raised, so the parents were telling us that in order to change life, you have to go to school, you have to have education. I felt that it would be possible to change life, to go to school, to get to college, to get the job that I want. That was my dream. That time, I think that's when I had this dream of becoming a journalist. That's when I had this dream of saying, okay, maybe I can do something which can have impact on the community. I thought about other things, but journalism, I thought that was the best way to have an impact in the community.
Very interesting. And so this is where you started then your journey. This was into 1995, and you were trying to go back to school.
To finish high school.
And then after that, then go off into university.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you when it came to yourself and maybe how this experience of living through the genocide may have changed you or impacted you as a person and your values and what you cared for. How do you feel that living through this?
Yes.
It was a 3-month period of
Yes.
genocide.
Mm-hmm.
And having gone through that, how did you feel after the fact in regarding you and what you wanted to do now in your community or in the world? How did it change you, impact you?
Well, this genocide had impact on my life. I saw a lot of people lost trust. It was really very hard. But on the other side, because going through this period when you feel like you are the only one who need to save your life, nobody else is going to protect you. It built in me something of hard work, working hard for myself to get what I want by myself. So not really to feel like I am going to expect something from somebody else. So on the other side, we try, not only me, but I know other people who try to make it something positive in them, including me, of course. I feel like I try to see something what the lesson can I learn from this, to feel like I have to work hard by myself. And this issue of changing the community, because we see lots of things that's happening. For instance, when I decided to be a journalist, I said, okay, I need to do that by myself, not really to expect something who can help me, knowing it was really very difficult to get there, because when I went to university, it was even competitive to get into journalism. Yeah, because in the university that I went to, it was the only journalism program in the country. So I remember we had hundreds of people competing for getting into journalism. So they had to select 20 people only. But I was always hoping that I would get there. So even if I had gone through all this situation where I could not even trust myself, but I tried to rebuild in me this kind of trust, at least to trust myself. Yeah, because
why did you feel like you couldn't trust yourself?
It was because like lots of things, like going through this survival life and feeling like you're going to compete for something like with other people. It was really very hard to trust myself, having all these sleepless nights, nightmares. So to focus, to stay focused. Yeah,
With
it was
the trauma. Was that what you mean?
I think so because it was really very hard to remain focused, even on school, on in everything. But yeah, it was especially when you don't sleep well, when you have these nightmares. Sometimes, it was really very hard to survive all this situation.
That's a very interesting point that you mentioned. From what I'm understanding, you couldn't trust yourself to pursue this goal because it was requiring from you a focus and an energy that you were slightly, it was being consumed by those nightmares and by the trauma that you had experienced. And so you had to try to really pull that energy and that focus from the negative that had happened to focusing on getting ahead in life. And you know why that's so important is because even now, 25 years later, so many people, so many young adults that went through the trauma directly, or they went through the genocide directly, or their parents went through the genocide, and now they have trauma due to they carrying the trauma that their parents had. A lot of these individuals, now it's hard for them to pick up their life and move on because they're dealing with so much. And so you were able to, though, with a lot of hard work, right? It was not easy. You were able to still remain focused and pursue this dream. And I think that's very important to speak to.
Yeah, it's hard because let's say like the people of my generation, I saw so many friends that we grew up together, those who survived. It's very easy to give up because you say, oh, why should I be doing this? I'm not sure that if something happened that I will survive again. My colleagues, my friends who were killed, they were stronger than me, so why should I break my neck? So at one point, it's easy to give up. So even today, it happens to take this energy, to have this energy, to stay focused on something that you want to do. It's still very hard. It's very hard, but it's possible. It's possible. There is some courageous people.
You included.
There is some that I know, but who work hard, who try to transform these negative things that happen to us, then to grab it, to bring it into positive things, because it's really very hard. This is the thing that we will go with, will carry all of our lives. So if you accept to be like colonized by this situation, it will happen forever, but it's a fight. It's a fight to try to transform, to change it in positive things, but it's possible.
It is possible. And, that speaks to, honestly, how strong you are. You were young. You were a teenager at this point, okay? A lot of young children, or young adults, they don't know how to deal. They don't know how to process. They're not equipped with the resources in order to be able to process and be able to stay on their goals. But what was it that kept you going? What was it that kept you focused on in your dream? And what sort of things did you tell yourself maybe? Or what did you try to think in order to keep you going?
It's to accept the way I am. Because there is things that I will not change in my life that happened already. So it's the things, the hard life that can discourage you on your way of life, It's possible you can get what you want because, for instance, let's say an example of this losing sleep. Then at one point, it may happen that you can spend the whole night, the sleepless night. But on the other side, you try to deal with that, to accept that's the way I am. But what can I do? At least to start to sleep like 2-3 hours a night. Then tomorrow try to increase. There is lots of solutions that you can find whenever you are facing those problems, but it's up to you to choose.
Yeah. And you were able to do that for yourself in order to stay with your goal. You're able to find these solutions that worked for you at this moment. If you need to stay focused, if you maybe needed to get a little bit of more rest.
I challenge myself. I play sports, then knowing that once I get tired, like I get exhausted, I take a shower, then and go to bed. Mm-hmm. So there is lots of solutions, but also in that situation, it's very easy to give up. Mm-hmm. Lots of people give up. And I know the people who stopped to go to school.
And why is that, though? Why did you refuse to give up? Because there's something different about how you thought. There's something different about what you wanted that made you refuse to give up.
Maybe the most important thing was like I thought a lot about these people who did genocide. So if you accept it to be the way they want, you're giving them the advantage. So try to do something different. So sometimes we used to say like they wanted to see us always crying, desperate. So the good response is to not accept that. It's in my philosophy. Like when I see like somebody want to turn me down, I don't accept it. Because if I give up and accept, I'm working in his advantages. So sometimes the good response is to do something different. So try to work hard. Because in this world, there is some people who try to turn others down, who don't encourage each other. The good response is not to do the same to them, but do something that you are supposed to do, that something that in your advantage, not in their advantage. Yeah, so that's maybe the main reason that I'm forcing to do that. In my life, I met lots of discouraging things, but the good solution is not to give up.
I love that. Thank you so much, Placide.
You're welcome.
That was very, very, very powerful to say. I want to move into now your journalism and the career that you were able to carry out for a short while in Rwanda, but you did face challenges. You faced challenges that limited your ability to fully live out this dream that you had, because you went through the schooling, right? You graduated with all this hard work that we were talking about that it takes, and you were able to finally have the title of journalist in Rwanda and do this incredible work. And I want you to talk about the challenges that you experienced that limited your ability to do your journalism.
Yeah, it was like a dream, because when I finished, so I worked for a radio for 1 year. Then later I was selected to keep my career at the national TV. So it was really great. It was great experience, another challenge, to challenge myself to improve my skills in journalism. And the good thing was, like, in journalism, the way the people judge your stories, the way you tell them the story, it's like something that help you to work hard, that encourage you. So that's the good thing with journalism. But as I told you, there was always the challenges, like in the country where, like everybody was saying, look, those journalists who promoted genocide, so they didn't even look, they don't care about like who you were. So that some people, they thought that journalists don't do anything positive. And another thing, like it was like lots of people want to use journalists for their own interest. So it's very easy if you don't be tough like in your job. So it's easier like for the powerful people to manipulate you. So you
So
have
there
to.
was like a sense of politics involved and corruption
Yeah.
involved. Corruption more so
even
than
this
anything.
even yeah, look, even those people who they always like want to use you, but if you try to resist some, they name you like you are fake news. Yeah, so you have to be careful with that. So it was really a great experience. It was something new that I learned. My heart to learn. I have to go through that situation. So it was always learning. Always
Interesting.
learning. Yeah.
It's interesting that you see it that way.
Yeah.
That this experience where you were criticized or tried to be swayed to do things that were against what you became a journalist for, that you were feeling like it was a learning experience.
Yes.
That's very interesting that was the way. And why did you see it that way?
I saw that way because every day there is something new. So it's not about only informing people, it's about learning. You have to learn before you inform people. And not only like the skills, the techniques of journalism, but also like from people's experience. I saw lots of things. I learned a lot, like the way I would treat the stories. So it was always something new, and it was really helpful. But also with those challenges, it was really very hard.
And how many years were you dealing with this throughout your career in Rwanda?
Like from, as I told you, from 2005 when I started to work with the radio, then 2006 I went to work with TV until 2009. Then from then I lost my job. In that context, then I didn't give up because this is the thing that I like very much. Then I decided to start my own video organization without making that much money, because even doing journalism, it doesn't pay lots of money, so you have to do it by passion.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so you have to love it, and really I enjoyed it the way I was doing it.
Yeah.
And so
and it was sharing the truth to people. That was what it was. It was highlighting things, bringing things to light for the people to be informed.
Yeah, people, they need to learn, because as you know, we don't only inform people, we educate them. So there is like things like that I did, like TV. It's really very easy just as entertainment to people, and at the same time educating people and informing them. So it was really a great experience, like in that community, in that society that was rebuilding itself after genocide.
Absolutely.
Telling these stories about the poverty, because poverty, it's a factor that some people take advantage of just to divide people.
Interesting.
So it was really a great experience. Yeah.
And you did a lot of work educating people. And there was eventually a point where, though, with all of these other challenges that were presented to you, with the criticism, with the corruption, that you felt there wasn't an opportunity to go further in your career, right?
Yes.
And so at this point, what was it that you decided that you wanted to do in order so that you can continue to pursue this dream of journalism and to educate people and to do your passion?
Yeah, it was really very hard when it was. I was thinking about like other opportunities. How can I really keep my dream alive? So one point, yes, it was really very difficult to stay there. Then I decided to come here. I was obliged to come here in America. So when I got here, like even I didn't give up. I decided to.
Let's backtrack a little bit. How was it for you deciding to leave your family in Rwanda? How was it?
Very hard, difficult, because it was a decision that I didn't really have in my mind first. It would be a choice. I would want to stay with my family. I want to stay with them, but on the other side, yeah, I was obliged to leave. And when I got here, the first 2 months were really very difficult. The time that I did was not with my family, even after genocide. Then I said, okay, I don't want to be far from my family. Then I was saying, but we kept in touch, talking here in America.
Were you able to speak English?
Not really that much.
Okay.
Yeah, actually,
Your native tongue is Kinyarwanda.
Rwanda. So it was really very hard to communicate, to listen. I had to force myself to learn.
So learning English was one of your challenges. What were some other key challenges that you went through when you came here and started to build your life up again?
To know people, to make the new friends. I used to go to church where I met some friends. I went to watch soccer, to watch tennis, where I could make the new friends. So it was really very hard in the big city like New York. Yeah.
Because you first went to New York.
Yes.
And you were living there for 8 years, is that right?
6 years.
6 years.
Yeah, before I came here to Washington, D.C., but it was really very difficult.
Yeah.
It's all about information, to always learn, to see how it works. And again, something that I thought that was almost impossible was about doing journalism.
Yeah.
Journalism again. So
at that time when you moved to America and you were living in New York, were you thinking that were you doubting if you would go back to journalism, if you'd be able to do journalism here?
Yeah, as I told you, it's without language, I had to push myself, then to make more connections. Then later, my English was improving. I started to write for a newspaper. I said, okay, let me transition from Rwanda, French, journalism, then to English. So it was really a huge challenge.
And how did you get through that?
It's practice. It's practice. So I had to start writing. So of course, my editor would tell me you need to improve this. You need to improve this. Then the first time that I published my first article was waited for a week. But slowly, I was trying to write another article in 3 days. At one point, I was able to write it in 1 day. So it's about practice.
You're practicing it.
And my English was improving. So that's how I was improving. But it was really very hard. Then later, of course, when I came here, I had an internship at Voice of America, still doing other language. Then I went to PBS NewsHour, where I was on TV. Everywhere I was trying to learn about journalism. It was not easy, but it's possible even here at school.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that you're missing a whole big point there. You are right now finishing your master's degree in journalism in Georgetown, in D.C. That's incredible.
Yes. Oh, thank you.
Incredible.
It's something that I had in mind when I was making a plan of what's going to be next. So even here to get the documents, to get green cards, it's not really easy. It's a long journey.
Yeah.
So after that, when I said, okay, you know what? No matter what, here there is opportunities in this country. How to get there? How to use them? So there is lots of things that we didn't have in our country. So then I said, okay, let me start to apply for schools, and also to leave New York to see how things are in other states. So then I said, okay. When I moved here to Washington, D.C., it was still a big challenge, to learn in one system, in education system in Africa, to come here, to go and find yourself in Georgetown,
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I kept pushing. It's always pushing, hard working, trying my best, so.
That's incredible. And you started this program here, your master's program, about a year and a half ago?
Yeah, about a year.
Okay, and so you've been here in America for 8 years total.
8 years, yes.
And so 6 of those years you were living in New York City. You were just working, building a network, and learning English.
Learning English, fixing my legal status. Yeah, so which is really very important here.
Yeah.
Because immigration, it's really something which is hard. You need to remain focused. You need to work hard. It's like a full-time job. After I finish here, I don't know what's gonna be next.
So tell me, what is one thing that you feel is the reason why you are here today, sitting with me in a meeting room in the Georgetown campus in Washington, D.C.? What is one thing that has kept you moving forward, or one philosophy in your mind that has made it possible?
Perseverance, maybe?
Perseverance, yeah.
Yeah, that's maybe the thing. Because there is lots of time that I thought that I would give up. It's always hard, but whenever you start to do something, make sure that you're going to finish it. So it's really very important. So I don't know, if it will always work, but
I think you will always find a way.
Yeah, I try my best. So, I'm glad to have these friends. It's not about me alone, but it's about also my friends who encourage me. As we said, whenever you have the friends who don't turn you down. So it's really very important to have, to encourage our friends.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's helpful.
Yes, having that support group around you is super important. And final couple of questions for you, Placide, today. I wanted to ask you, how do you feel now knowing that you have the freedom to pursue your passion?
It's really very important, but always I remember my parents used to tell me freedom doesn't come alone. Freedom comes with the responsibilities. So that's the reason why. On one side, it's really something good, to feel that you are free. But on the other side, it's your responsibility to know how to sustain that freedom, not to abuse that freedom. I feel like that's the reason why even whenever I'm with my friend, sometimes I can ask them, what can I do? And I feel like if every friend would think like that way, to ask each other, what can I help? To help each other, to encourage each other. So I'm enjoying this, knowing also what I went through in my life. But also there is, of course, the challenges, whenever I see what's happening today, especially in journalism, when the people have this opportunity of becoming journalists, and sometimes they abuse, sometimes they are attacked. Sometimes it happens that for some it's very hard to resist this temptation. So you need to know how to manage all of this situation with the journalism is going through, because it's changing. It's no longer the same. It's no longer the same like before. Yeah, because when I compare what I went through in our country, everybody criticizing the journalists, blaming them. It's happening here. So it's our responsibility to manage that situation, to know how we can face that kind of situation, not to be like the victims of that kind of situation that we are facing today in this country, because it's not only in this country, it's around the world.
That's very interesting that you mentioned that. But I'm so happy with where you are today and what you were able to overcome in order to be living this dream that you always had. And honestly, is absolutely incredible. And I know you have good things around the corner for you. You have some incredible opportunities, whether you decide to pursue one thing or another. So I want you to tell us what those opportunities are and what your overall hope is for the future, now your future career in journalism moving forward.
Yeah, of course, I am looking around. I am trying to see if I can. I'm going to apply different places. There is where I went for internship, for fellowship, was at PBS News, where I was at Voice of America. I still kept the good contacts of over there, connections. So Of course, I'm still open. I'm looking other places. It's always about applying then to see what's going to happen. So
And these meetings that you're going to New York City
for UN, yeah.
Okay.
Of course,
yes.
yeah, exciting, but it's always to try. Hopefully,
Yeah.
something is going to happen. I'll keep you posted.
Let me know. You were looking at Voice of America, PBS NewsHour, and working
UN.
potentially with the UN.
Yeah, so
I mean, these
it's
are
always
great.
trying to keep trying.
Yep. And regardless of where you go, what is it that you're passionate about sharing when it comes to journalism?
Yeah, there is I try to look in the past what I did about climate change, economic development and poverty. Those issues that can touch the life of people. That's what I'm looking for. As I told you, I'm trying to learn a lot because even I would like to let you know that since we met, we had discussion, then you are doing such a great job that I'm learning a lot from you.
Okay.
And this issue of immigration that you talk about, these issues that can help the people to change life. And thank you for that. So I'm learning a lot from you, and keep it up. For sure, even in the future, I'm looking forward to learn a lot from you. So there is lots of topics that we should really attack and talk about, tell a story about them that can help people to change, to improve their life.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And as our friendship continues, I have no doubt that I will be sharing a lot of these different topics that I'm looking into, because I believe in the same thing about spreading awareness, bringing these issues to light so that people know that it's going on, and it's going on around the corner from them. I mean, here in America, so many things going on. Around the world, so many things going on, and it's important for people to know about it. So I'm happy, that we're going to be working on this journey together, because we're both on a journey together, really.
Definitely. It's my pleasure.
Yes, and I want to thank you so much for being here today, Placide, to share your story, your journey of where you were in Rwanda, having gone through the genocide, persevering and making sure that you were always focused on the goal that you had. And even though there were so many things along the way that could have completely derailed you from that goal, you completely stuck to it. And that's what has led you to being here and doing this interview. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, my friend Roy. And I'm looking forward to keep contributing. If there is anything that you think that I can help with, feel free to let me know.
Sounds good. I'll make sure to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Placide.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it and feel inspired and would like to be a part of the Relentless Minds community, you can join the movement for change on Instagram and Twitter. We would also love to know how your experience has been as a listener. If you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join us next week for another powerful story. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.